Can you remember the smell of it? Not just the food, though that was part of it, but all of it together. The wet canvas of the stall covers after a Tuesday morning drizzle. The faint tang of newsprint from the papers stacked near the entrance. The soft thud of a cabbage being placed on a scale. The rattle of coins in a leather pouch. The particular cold that sat in your fingers even through your gloves. The kind that made a hot mug of Bovril taste like the finest thing on earth. You were there. You know exactly the market I'm talking about. It might have been Stockport or Shrewsbury. It might have been a small square in the middle of a Yorkshire town that still smelt faintly of the cattle market it replaced. It might have been a high street in Lancashire or Lincolnshire where the stalls went up every Thursday and Saturday without fail, just as they had done for generations before you were born. And in your pocket, or your mother's purse, if you were small enough to still be holding her hand, there was a single-pound note. Not a coin, a note. Crisp and green or soft and worn depending on where it had been. Queen Elizabeth on the front, the Bank of England's promise on the back, and the absolute confidence in your chest that it was enough. That £1 was going to carry you through the whole market, maybe even leave change. Today, the equivalent of what that single pound bought you in 1975 would cost you somewhere between £30 and £40 depending on what you were after. And some of the things it bought, the actual specific, precise things, you cannot buy anymore at any price because they no longer exist. This is the story of that pound, where it went, what it touched, what it meant, and what we quietly lost along the way. Let us go back. Let us go back in time. It's a Saturday morning in 1975. The average weekly wage in Britain is around £42. That sounds like a great deal more than it is, of course, because a pint of milk costs less than 5 pence, a loaf of bread is around 10 pence, and a pound, one single pound, represents something real and weighty in the economy of daily life. It has heft, it has dignity. You're at the market by 9 o'clock because the best stalls go early. You've come properly dressed for it. This is not a casual errand. There's a bag on your arm, a proper shopping bag. Not a plastic carrier, but a woven or canvas bag that belonged to your mother before you, the kind with rigid handles that went red in your hands when it got heavy. Some people have a wheeled trolley, the tartan type, that trundled along the cobblestones with a sound like distant machine gun fire. The first stall you stop at is the greengrocer. This is not a supermarket with its shrink-wrapped uniformity. These vegetables have soil on them. The carrots come in a bunch with their feathery tops still attached, and they smell of the earth they were pulled from, a dark and faintly sweet smell. A dark and faintly sweet smell that no plastic-bagged carrot from a supermarket chiller has ever managed to replicate, not in 50 years of trying. The cauliflowers are as big as a child's head, and the outer leaves are still bright green, not stripped away to make them look tidy. The leeks have a faint perfume to them that hits you from 3 feet away. You could buy 5 pounds of potatoes, King Edward's, the proper floury ones, the ones that collapse into a cloud of steam when you open them, for 12 pence. 5 pounds of potatoes. The kind of potatoes that made a roast dinner into something sacred. A pound of tomatoes was 8 pence. A cabbage, the big solid Dutch variety, cost 6 pence. 4 pounds of onions, the sort you'd cry over for 20 minutes while making a proper gravy, came to 9 pence. For 35 pence, you had done your vegetable shopping for the week for a family of 4. You move on down the row. The next stall has something that today's younger generation may genuinely never have encountered in its proper form. Loose tea. Not bags. Loose leaf tea, scooped from a tin into a paper bag and weighed on brass scales that the stallholder works with the confidence of someone who has done it 10,000 times. You could get 4 ounces of a decent Assam blend. Not the finest, but solid, flavorful. The kind that goes dark brown in the pot and stands up to a proper splash of full-fat milk, for 9 pence. The smell of loose-leaf tea being scooped in an open market in 1975 is one of those sensory memories that, if you experienced it, never entirely leaves you. It's warm and dry and slightly smoky, with a greenish undertone beneath the black. It's the smell of the kitchen at 3 in the afternoon, of a cup placed in front of you without being asked, of a country that ran on tea the way a car runs on petrol. Tea bags were available by 1975, of course. Tetley had been selling them since the early 60s, but many of the older stallholders still sold loose, and many of the older shoppers still bought it that way, because that's how it tasted right. Within a decade, the loose tea stall was largely gone from British markets. The last remnants clung on in certain Asian grocery stalls in Birmingham and Bradford and Leicester, and they still do, if you know where to look. But the market stall greengrocer with his brass scales and his Assam blend, that vanished so quietly that most of us didn't notice until it was already gone. Further along, past the stall selling second-hand paperbacks, a penny each or 5 for 4 pence, the Alastair MacLeans and Neville Shutes and Hammond Inneses lined up in their faded orange penguins, you come to the butcher's van. In 1975, there were more than 28,000 independent butchers operating in Britain. By 2024, that number had fallen to fewer than 6,000. The decline is one of the quieter tragedies of British commercial life, because what was lost with the independent butcher was not just a shop, it was knowledge. The market butcher knew his meat. He could tell you which farm the lamb came from, roughly how long it had been hung, which cut you wanted for a long, slow braise, and which wanted high heat and nothing else. He would give you bones for stock without being asked. If you were a regular, and at a market, you became a regular very quickly, he might slip an extra rasher into the bag for the children. In 1975, a pound of back bacon cost around 23 pence. A pound of good beef mince was 18 pence. A whole chicken, and this is the one that genuinely staggers people when they hear it. A whole chicken could be had for around 50 to 60 pence. Not a poor chicken, a proper bird. The chickens of 1975 tasted like something you may struggle to find today. They were slower grown, most of them. The commercial-intensive chicken farming that now produces the vast majority of British poultry was in its infancy in 1975, and market traders generally sourced from smaller producers. Those chickens had flavor in their flesh and good strong jelly in their bones that set hard in the fridge overnight and made a stock that was practically a meal in itself. You took your chicken home, you put it in the oven on a Sunday at 11 o'clock, and by 12:30, the whole house smelled of something so deeply, elementally good that it gathered the family into the kitchen before anyone had been called. With your pound already stretched across potatoes, vegetables, tea, and a chicken, you might still have a few pence left for the stall you'd been quietly looking forward to the whole morning, the bread stall. In many British markets in 1975, a local bakery would have a stall, not a national chain, a local bakery run by someone whose parents had run it before them, producing bread that came out of the oven at a specific time each morning and arrived at the market still holding a trace of warmth. A large white tin loaf, the proper one, with the slightly domed top and the soft crust that gave under your thumb, cost around 11 pence. A batch of 6 bread rolls, the soft, floury ones, was 7 pence. The smell of fresh bread in an open market is one of those smells that works on a level beneath logic. It doesn't matter how cynical you are, or how rushed you are, or how bad your morning has been. Fresh bread in the cold air of a British market on a Saturday morning does something to a person. It slows you down. It reminds you that you are alive, that the morning is good, that there is something worth stopping for. By the mid-1980s, the Chorleywood bread process, developed in 1961 but fully dominant in the mass market by the late 70s, had changed British bread forever. The process allowed bread to be produced in 2 hours, rather than the traditional several hours of fermentation and proving, using lower protein British wheat and a range of chemical additives to compensate. The bread kept longer. It was cheaper to produce. It was softer and squishier and entirely uniform, and it tasted of almost nothing at all. The artisan bread revival that began in the 1990s, the sourdough boom of the 2010s, the expensive handcrafted loaves you see in farmers' markets today, all of it is an attempt, only partially successful, to get back to something that the local bakery in the local market was simply doing as a matter of course in 1975. And it costs, today, somewhere between 4 and 6 pounds for a single loaf of that quality. Your pound is nearly spent now, but let's not leave the market yet. Let's walk a little slower. There's a stall here selling household goods. Brass polish in a tin, 3 pence. A wooden washing peg, not plastic, but wooden, the old kind that doesn't split in the frost. A penny each or a dozen for 10 pence. A dishcloth made of cotton, the kind that lasts 18 months with daily use, was 3 pence. A block of carbolic soap, hard and dark orange and smelling of something antiseptic and clean that is nothing like the perfumed gel soaps of the present day, could be had for 2 pence. The carbolic soap is worth lingering on for a moment, because it is very specifically a scent memory. If you grew up in a British working-class household in the 60s and 70s, carbolic soap is in the deep archive of your senses. It was the smell of the bathroom before bath time, of your grandmother's kitchen sink, of hands being cleaned properly, of a particular austere comfort. You can still buy carbolic soap. Wright still makes it and has done since 1860, but finding it in a market is another matter. The household goods stall, in most British markets today, has been replaced by stalls selling phone cases, imported confectionery, and fast fashion. The wooden peg has given way to the plastic one, which breaks in the cold and ends up in the sea. The fast fashion industry, which by some estimates produces 92 million tons of textile waste every year globally, didn't exist yet. The average British woman in 1975 bought fewer than 25 items of clothing per year. By 2019, that number had grown to more than 60, and most of those items were worn fewer than 10 times before being discarded. Something that was thrift and common sense in 1975 had become, by the early 2000s, a niche lifestyle choice with its own language, sustainable, circular, conscious. The thing your grandmother did without thinking about it now requires a philosophy. The fast fashion industry, which by some estimates produces 92 million tons of textile waste every year globally, didn't exist yet. The average British woman in 1975 bought fewer than 25 items of clothing per year. By 2019, that number had grown to more than 60, and most of those items were worn fewer than 10 times before being discarded. Something that was thrift and common sense in 1975 had become, by the early 2000s, a niche lifestyle choice with its own language, sustainable, circular, conscious. The thing your grandmother did without thinking about it now requires a philosophy. Let's walk one more time down the row because there's something here you might have forgotten. The flower stall. In 1975, flowers were not a luxury. Flowers were a normal part of the weekly shop in a way that feels almost foreign now. A bunch of chrysanthemums, the classic British market flower, in that slightly bruised orange and gold, the ones that smell of wet stems and autumn afternoons, was 5p. Sweet peas, when they were in season, were a penny a bunch, and their scent was so extravagant and improbable that it seemed impossible something that small and pale could smell that powerfully of summer. The flower stall holder was often a woman of a certain age who knew the names of every regular customer and remembered what they'd bought last week. If you were going through something difficult, a bereavement, a spell in hospital, a child gone to university, she knew, and she might slip an extra stem into your bunch, and she might squeeze your hand when she handed it over, and neither of you would mention it. This is what markets were. They were not just retail, they were a form of community infrastructure. They were the place where people who lived alone spoke to other people each week, the place where the rhythms of local life were shared and witnessed, where you knew who had had a baby and who had lost a parent, where gossip and kindness moved through the air together like the smell of fresh bread and wet wool. According to data from the National Association of British Market Authorities, Britain had more than 1,200 regular outdoor and indoor markets operating in the early 1970s. By 2023, that number had declined significantly, with many market towns reduced to a single monthly session or none at all. The reasons are familiar: supermarkets, online shopping, town center decline, parking charges, planning decisions that valued car parks over market squares, all reasonable, all logical, all entirely devastating in their cumulative effect. Your pound, that single, specific, physically real pound note, the one that was in your pocket on a Saturday in 1975, bought you something that no inflation calculator can properly account for. It bought you entrance into a shared world. A world that smelled of real things and sounded of real voices. A world where the person selling you your potatoes knew your name and your mother's name and would ask after the children. What does that cost today? The precise basket of goods we've described: 5 pounds of King Edwards, 4 pounds of tomatoes, a cabbage, 4 pounds of onions, 4 ounces of loose-leaf tea, a pound of back bacon, a whole chicken, a large tin loaf, a wooden peg, and a block of carbolic soap, a bunch of chrysanthemums, would have come to approximately 98p in 1975. Just under a pound. You would have had change. To replicate that basket today, as closely as possible, would cost between 38 and 42 pounds, depending on where you shop and whether you insist on the proper equivalents. The chicken alone, if you want a free-range, slow-grown bird from a proper butcher, is likely to cost you between 8 and 14 pounds. The bread, if you want the real thing from a real bakery, will cost you 4 or 5. The flowers, if you can find a proper market stall, might be 4 or 5 more. But that's only the things that still exist. Some of what your pound bought in 1975 is not available at any price today. The experience of buying loose-leaf tea from a man with brass scales who knew your order without being told. The flavor of a chicken that grew up slowly and ate properly and tasted of itself. The bread that came warm from a local oven and went stale by Wednesday because it contained nothing to prevent it. Because it was never meant to last longer than that. The feel of a market town doing what a market town was built to do. The square full and alive on a Thursday morning. The rhythm of it as reliable as the church clock above it. These things were not taken away suddenly. They went so gradually that most of us barely registered each individual loss. The baker closed when the old man retired, and the son went to work in an office. The loose tea stall packed up one Saturday and didn't come back the next. The chicken farmer sold the land to a housing developer in 1987 and moved to Norfolk. The market square was resurfaced to allow better vehicle access in 1994 and never quite felt the same again. Each one, alone, was a small thing. Together, they are a country we are only now, in hindsight, learning to mourn. There's a particular kind of grief for things that disappeared slowly that involves not quite being able to say exactly when you last saw them. You don't remember the last time you bought loose-leaf tea from a market stall because you didn't know it was the last time. You don't remember the specific Sunday when the chicken tasted properly of itself for the final time. You don't remember the last time the market square in your town was full enough that you had to navigate around people that it felt genuinely alive rather than surviving. If you do remember, if you were there, if you held that pound note, if you wheeled that tartan trolley over those cobblestones, you carry something that the generations coming behind you simply do not have. Not because they are lesser, but because the thing itself is gone. They have photographs, and they have accounts, and they have recordings, but they don't have the smell of those chrysanthemums in the cold October air. They don't have the particular weight of 5 pounds of King Edward's through a canvas bag. They don't have the sound of brass scales settling. You have those things. They live in you. And that's why it matters to say them out loud, to put them into words, to share them with anyone who will listen, including the people who were too young to have been there and want to understand what it meant to live in a Britain where a single pound, in the right hands, on the right morning, in the right square, could feel like abundance. The markets that remain, and some do remain, and some are growing back, and some are being fought for by communities who understand exactly what they stand to lose, deserve to be seen and valued and visited. Not out of nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, but because what the market represents is something human and fundamental and deeply worth preserving. The directness of it, the seasonality of it, the accountability of it, the butcher who knows what he sold you, the grower who can tell you which field this came from. If you have a market near you, go. Take a bag, take time, speak to the people behind the stalls, spend a little more than the supermarket would cost you, and understand that the difference is what keeps something irreplaceable alive. And if you remember, if all of this has brought back a particular market, a particular stall, a particular smell or sound or moment, please tell us. Leave it in the comments below. Write it out exactly as you remember it. The town, the stall, the year, the thing you bought, the person who sold it to you, if you remember their face or their name. These details matter. They are the substance of a history that is not in any textbook, not in any archive, but alive in the memories of the people who were there. History is not just in the grand events and the famous names. It's in the weight of a shopping bag. It's in the smell of bread on a cold morning. It's in the sound of a pound coin, or a pound note, before the coin came in 1983. Being placed on a wooden counter and the hand that reached out to take it, and the brief moment of connection between two people in a market square on an ordinary Saturday that neither of them would ever think to call extraordinary, because it simply was the world, and the world was good. Thank you for being here. If this brought something back for you, share it with someone who was there with you. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing, because this channel exists for one reason: to keep these stories alive, told with the care they deserve, for as long as anyone is left to want to hear them. See you next time.